Hello, joining me for a conversation about digital intelligence is Michael Brown with Honeywell Process Solutions. Michael, thank you. I'd like to ask you, what are some IT trends you're seeing around software and technology that will most affect how customers adopt that technology?
Yeah, Mark, we're really seeing two things happening. We're seeing trends on the customer side and we're seeing trends on the technology side. It's how these come together, which are really driving the action and the activity in this space. So as an example, on the IT side, we're seeing things like mobility being a big factor, things like cloud enablement, Internet of Things, universal connectivity. These are all big drivers that companies are trying to understand how to enable. If we look at our customer side, trends like compliant, lack of resources, scarcity of expertise, having assets in far remote places, those are real challenges that they're trying to address. So as these two factors come together, we look and we say, now we have an opportunity to do things differently, and we have to do things differently. So it's really the combination of those two factors that are driving a lot of the activity that we're seeing.
How is Honeywell addressing those trends?
Yeah, so at Honeywell, we're really looking to understand how these IT enablers are able to impact our customers and allow them to actually run operations better. So what we don't want to do is simply take applications and run them on, say, a mobile platform or whatnot. We want to understand how this really changes the way they do business. So a couple of practical examples. If we look at simulation business, today a lot of people have done a lot of investment in building detailed simulators and very comprehensive simulators. What if we could actually run those simulations on the cloud and allow companies to take a more comprehensive training program where they could actually train across simulators and across all their plants from one central location on the cloud? Much more effective and much more of a life cycle approach to the technology. Another great example would be mobility. It's not just about running applications on mobile devices. It's about using mobility to connect people differently to the applications so that they can be notified of the situations that they need to be aware of. They can also take action. They can understand the context around, and you can tie in resources and expertise globally into the actions that are required in your organization.
Okay. How do you see the whole universal connectivity developments supporting the concept of the Internet of Things?
Yeah. So at Honeywell, we really have a broad suite of applications, right from how you actually embed things like open connectivity standards, OPC UA, embedded UA right into the devices, and it starts there. Getting the devices to be able to easily connect to the systems is what's going to drive this market. Once you have the devices connected to the systems and your applications now can actually tie into that data on some sort of universal ecosystem of that data connectivity and data management, now all of a sudden you have an environment in which people can spend most of their time looking at understanding how to build the applications on top that really provide that digital intelligence. So it's really that full spectrum from connection of the assets all the way through to applications. And we're seeing today many companies looking at that model. So a great example for us is we have a mining company in Chile who start to connect all of their assets remotely so that from one central location, we're able to actually monitor the assets, and they've used this to now deploy the advanced applications centrally from one location. Greatly speeding up the deployment rate of the applications, the benefits that they're realizing, and totally changing the support mechanism by which they actually support and monitor these applications in real time.
So this seems like a collaborative production management system. Where have you seen successes in this?
Yeah, so when they get to the whole collaborative production management system, they've really closed the loop on it. They've put that challenge of the connection of the assets and bringing that information up behind them, and they've really started to be able to focus on getting the application layer, the scheduling, the collaboration amongst the individuals, the workflows. They've been able to connect those down into the assets and let the asset information really drive a lot of that activity. So again, one of our customers in India, a large customer with multiple refineries, multiple chemical plants, and multiple polyester facilities. What they've been able to do is to look and say, how do we take all of the events, all of the actions on our assets and our devices, bring these things up, take that information, share it across the enterprise to the owners of it. So not just the operators who are running the plant, but the operational people making the business decisions. When they now have access to that key information, in real time, and it's in a compliance loop, a management operating system, they can now actually take action. If you look at the top end of that CPM system, where you're looking at actually monitoring the KPIs and the key performance drivers, they have role-based KPIs that are also looking at the business metrics of all of these assets from a production, efficiency, safety, reliability perspective, and driving a role-based KPI management compliance system at the top end. So bringing that data up, having the business information visible to the owners on a role-based, contextualized basis, then you can really layer your applications in the middle and ensure that you have a total closed loop along that CPM or collaborative production management environment.
Okay. You know, you mentioned mining, you mentioned a chemical plant. Honeywell plays with a lot of different, or in a lot of different industries. How do you customize, or how do you make sure that what you're providing is applicable to a particular plant?
So what we spend a lot of time doing voice of the customer. Understanding a lot of customers today want to look at the Internet of Things. They want connectivity. They want that digital intelligence. They're not quite sure how to get there. You need to sit with the customers. You need to understand truly how this technology is going to make a difference for them and how it's going to change their operating models and how it's going to improve their operating models. It's not just about connecting the assets, and it's not just about making the data available. It's about putting operating systems around that and understand it. Once you understand that, then you can actually build the models and the change in the business models that we've been talking about. So for example, customer with 30 refineries, the ability to train their operators from one central location is game-changing for them. So understanding, doing that VOC and understanding how these Internet of Things concepts are really driving efficiency in these organizations is really key. You have to understand where their drivers are.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned some of these, but where do you see the process industries really benefiting the most from the Internet of Things?
Yeah, the process industries, in my mind, is a little bit behind the curve. A lot of the process industries are large plants, pretty self-sustained, heavily resourced, close to big cities. If you look at the Internet of Things in manufacturing, where they have multiple devices, if you look at it for remote assets, you see that developing a little bit faster. But I think it's now starting to impact the processing plants. And it's really coming from the manufacturers of the equipment. So as manufacturers are now starting to embed things like OPC and embedded UA inside of the devices, and that information becomes available, it totally changes the business models. So you're going to start to see a real change between how owner-operators and vendors actually start to work together. They're going to go more from less from just a supplier of the equipment to a supplier of uptime and supplier of efficiency and supplier of the actual what that asset is there to deliver. If that asset's there to deliver oxygen to the process, they'll take on the responsibility of the delivery of oxygen. If that vendors who actually want to deliver a service through that software in terms of monitoring and the expertise of operating and ensuring that those pieces of equipment are operating at peak performance, software as a service, right? So I think you're going to start to see that the process industries really take that on. The other dimension we'll see is the remote operations. I think as you start to enable this world and this connectivity, you'll start to see plants looking at how do I expand my organization, how do I grow my organization, even with the challenges of resourcing and distributed assets and remote assets, by operating them centrally and operating them remotely. The Internet of Things will open that up in the process industries, and I think we're right on the cusp of seeing that.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome, Mark.
This has been a conversation about digital intelligence with Michael Brown of Honeywell Process Solutions.